I moved into the old apartment building because it was cheap. Too cheap for the location, honestly. It sat wedged between two newer developments, a forgotten four-story block of faded brick and narrow hallways. This story was sent in by Marcus Hale from Detroit, Michigan. The landlord told me only 3 other tenants lived there, all older men who kept to themselves. He said it like it was a selling point. The place wasn't disgusting or broken, just wrong. The walls were slightly uneven, like they'd been patched over and over. The air carried a faint metallic smell that never went away. And the building was quiet, far quieter than a place with people inside should be. On my first night, I noticed something strange. The floor plan didn't make sense. My unit was supposed to be a small one-bedroom, but the hallway between the living room and bathroom felt unusually long. When I knocked on the wall, it sounded hollow, as if there was an empty space behind it. I told myself old construction is weird. I told myself not to overthink things. But the feeling grew. Every night I heard soft tapping behind that wall, not loud enough to be intrusive, just enough to make me pause mid-breath. The neighbors were no help. They barely spoke. The man across the hall stared too long when I greeted him, like he was analyzing me instead of responding. The guy downstairs only ever mumbled something that sounded like a prayer. The third tenant, whose door I never saw open, never made a sound at all. 3 days after moving in, I found the hatch. I wasn't even looking for it. I had dropped my keys in the hallway and they skidded under the baseboard. When I knelt down to retrieve them, I noticed a small recessed panel, painted the same color as the wall. It had no handle, just a tiny indentation, something you'd never notice unless you were inches from the floor. The moment I touched it, I felt a cold ripple through my chest, like dread had suddenly acquired weight. The panel opened with almost no resistance. Behind it was a crawl space, and inside the crawl space was a notebook, old, yellowing, its spine cracked from being opened too many times. Dust coated the cover, but the pages were surprisingly clean, as if someone had handled it recently. I should have left it alone, but curiosity does something to your logic. It bends it, stretches it, reshapes it until walk away starts sounding like the least reasonable option. So I took it inside. The first page started normally enough. If you found this, it means it found you too. I froze. The handwriting belonged to a man, shaky, uneven strokes, but heavy pressure, like he wrote in a state of panic. I kept reading. The space behind your wall isn't empty, it's waiting. It learns you before you learn it. More pages, all frantic, all spiraling. It feeds on your attention. Don't look at the wall too long. Don't listen to the tapping. My blood ran cold when I read the next line. It wants to be noticed. I dropped the notebook like it was burning me. The tapping behind the wall started again, louder this time. A slow, rhythmic pattern, as if responding to my discovery. That night I barely slept. The next morning I confronted my neighbors. The man across the hall insisted I had no idea what I was talking about. His eyes kept darting to the wall behind me, like something might push through it at any second. When I asked him if the tapping kept him awake, he just shook his head and closed his door without saying a word. The guy downstairs told me to ignore the voice. When I pressed him, he shut down and refused to speak more. The third tenant, I still hadn't seen him. That night, things escalated. The tapping became scratching, slow, deliberate, something tracing the inside of the wall. I sat in my bed, covers pulled up to my chin, listening as the noise traveled from one end of the wall to the other, like whatever was behind it was pacing. At some point, I whispered to myself, "This can't be real." And then I heard it, a whisper right behind my ear. "It is." I whipped around so fast my neck popped, but nothing was there. Nothing visible anyway. The air behind me felt colder, heavier, like it had its own gravity. I grabbed my phone to call the landlord, but as soon as I dialed, the call failed. Not no service, not call ended. Just failed, like something interfered before the signal even left my phone. That's when the realization hit me. My isolation wasn't accidental. This thing, whatever lived in the wall, wanted me alone. The following evening, I heard footsteps in the hallway around 3 a.m. Slow, dragging footsteps. They stopped in front of my door. Then a soft knock. I didn't answer. Another knock, firmer. Then the voice of the man across the hall. "It's spreading." Before I could respond, his footsteps retreated quickly, nearly running down the hallway stairs. The notebook's words echoed. It learns you before you learn it. The next day I noticed something even worse. The wall was bulging, not outward, just shifting, like something was pressing lightly against it from the inside. When the light hit it at an angle, I could see faint impressions, shapes, like fingertips dragging downward. Every night it became harder to ignore, harder not to look. The more I looked, the more detail I saw in those movements behind the wall. The more I heard. Breathing. Not human breathing. Slower, deeper, almost liquid. Like something trying to imitate the way lungs work, but not quite getting it right. Around this point, I started recording videos for my own sanity. I wanted proof. Something to show a friend, a cop, someone who could confirm I wasn't losing my mind. But every recording came out wrong. Distorted, glitched. Whenever I filmed the wall, the video became static. Whenever I filmed myself talking about it, my voice warped, dropping to a deep, unnatural pitch. The psychological isolation became complete. I couldn't even trust my senses anymore. On the seventh night, everything fell apart. The wall didn't just bulge. It pushed outward violently, like something was slamming against it. The tapping became pounding. The breathing became gurgling. The smell of metal thickened until I tasted it. I grabbed the notebook and flipped to the back pages. There was one final entry. It won't stop until you notice it properly. A loud crack shot through the air. The drywall split. A long, blackened hand slid out, thin, wrongly jointed, fingers too long, nails like splintered bone. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own foot, landing hard on the floor. The creature, or the parasite or whatever it was, pressed its face into the crack, pushing further through. Its head was misshapen, faceless except for a shifting indentation where a face should have been. As it crawled out, I felt something push into my mind. Thoughts that weren't mine. Panic that wasn't mine. Terror amplified and magnified until I couldn't tell what I was feeling and what it was feeding me. Even as I felt my sanity thinning, some fragment of logic remained, enough to make me whisper, "If you're enjoying these true horror stories, make sure to subscribe to Ultra Spooky and hit that notification bell so you never miss when we upload new nightmares." The thing paused. It turned its faceless head toward me like it understood the words, like it was listening. And then, the lights went out. The last thing I remember is its hand closing around my ankle and dragging me toward the wall. The drywall gave way like wet paper. I screamed, but the sound muffled as soon as my head crossed the threshold. I woke up lying in my apartment again, the wall perfectly intact, the crack completely gone, my phone on the floor, the notebook missing. The neighbors were gone. All 3 units emptied overnight. No forwarding addresses, no explanation. When I tried to move out the next morning, the landlord looked confused. "There's no one else here," he told me. "There hasn't been for years." I left that building within an hour. But I still hear tapping sometimes, no matter where I sleep, no matter how far I go. Soft, deliberate tapping, like something found me once and now it knows how to find me again. This was just one of many terrifying true stories from the Ultra Spooky archives. Stay tuned for our next tale of horror.